As stated by the Alzheimer's Association, Alzheimer's is a type of dementia that affects memory, thinking, and behavior. Alzheimer's disease accounts for 60 to 80% of dementia cases. The greatest known risk factor is increasing age, and the majority of people with Alzheimer's are 65 years and older. In its early stages, memory loss is mild, but with late on-stage Alzheimer's, individuals lose the ability to carry on a conversation and respond to their environment. Alzheimer's is the sixth leading cause of death in the United States. On average, a person with Alzheimer's lives 4 to 8 years after diagnosis, but can live as long as 20 years, depending on other factors. As Alzheimer's advances through the brain, it leads to increasingly severe symptoms, including disorientation, deepening confusion about events, time and place, and difficulty speaking, swallowing, and walking. The U.S. National Library of Medicine published in an article about research that has been done on familial and late-onset Alzheimer's. They stated that it was recently discovered that early-onset Alzheimer's that is prevalent in the family has an autosomal dominant inheritance pattern. For familial Alzheimer's, the disease is usually inherited from a parent with Alzheimer's. On the other hand, late-onset Alzheimer's does not have identifiable causes. Unlike familial Alzheimer's, late-onset Alzheimer's does not run in families.
The 23andMe test and its limitations. The 23andMe test for Alzheimer's disease includes tests for the E4 variant in the APOE gene associated with an increased risk of developing late-onset Alzheimer's disease. The E4 variant is a variant of a polyprotein that encodes proteins carrying cholesterol around the brain. Possessing 1 or 2 copies of this gene may increase risk of developing Alzheimer's disease at an early age. The APOE gene is present in the central and the peripheral nervous systems. There is a strong link between these two components in the brain and could influence Alzheimer's disease by disrupting the blood-brain disorder integrity from both sides. APOE4 is the high-risk variant of the APOE gene. Those with AOPE4 gene have a 15 times higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease than those with the APO3 variant. The presence of both RS7412cc and RS428358cc relates to the highest risk APOE4 gene. There are other variants that could lead to Alzheimer's disease, like the E2 and E3 variants. 23andMe does not test for these variants, as these variants are not that likely to cause an increase in the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease.
There are more than 150 mutations found to be related to early onset Alzheimer's, and there are several other significant variations linked to late onset. Approximately 150 to 200 SNPs will be included in our test. One gene we test for, presenilin-1, is notable for genetic risk of inherited Alzheimer's. Presenilins regulate the processing of amyloid precursor proteins, which are found in the brain and spinal cord. Not much is known about the function of amyloid precursor proteins, but presenilin-1 mutations cause one of the amino acids, molecules that form proteins, to be replaced. As a result, there is increased production of amyloid beta peptide in the brain, or the creation of a longer and stickier version of amyloid beta. This toxic peptide can cause buildups called amyloid plaques, which can later develop into Alzheimer's and eventually lead to neuron degeneration and worsening of symptoms. This animation shows how beta amyloid peptide builds up and forms amyloid plaque in neurons. As a result, neurons are unable to send signals and form connections with each other. This will eventually lead to neuron degeneration and worsening of Alzheimer's symptoms.
23andMe only tests for the APOE4 allele. Our test includes every variation discovered to be related to Alzheimer's, both early and late onset, with the most significant being variations on the presenilin-1 gene. For inherited Alzheimer's cases, these mutations were found to be the most significant cause of the disease. This will help families who have a history of Alzheimer's. Our SMP chip also tests for mutations on the presenilin-2 gene and amyloid precursor protein gene, which were identified to be related to the developing early onset Alzheimer's. Individuals who are concerned of inheriting Alzheimer's, particularly from someone who had early onset, may benefit from taking this test. Variations on the APP gene that reduce risk for Alzheimer's, and a mutation on the PLD3 gene that doubles the risk for developing the disease are also included in our test. Our genetic tests can help individuals and families determine their risk of developing Alzheimer's, or even determine if they have strong protection from the disease.
We will use the Protein gene is an example to convey scientific limitations of getting tested for Alzheimer's. There are two variations that we need to discuss: variation E2, which is rare and believed to protect against Alzheimer's, and variation E4, which is more common and increases an individual's risk of Alzheimer's. The issue is that the exact risk of developing Alzheimer's from one of these alleles is not yet known. Therefore, we cannot accurately deduce the chance of risk each individual has when getting tested. On top of this, environmental factors also play a role in who will develop Alzheimer's in the future and who will not, and the rate at which one develops Alzheimer's. Thus, tests are not entirely accurate and will not exactly tell you if you will get the disease or not. The presence of the E4 variant can also lead to psychological and emotional distress. On top of that, Alzheimer's is still not entirely understood, and there is currently no cure available. Testing positive for Alzheimer's can have pros and cons, such as in vitro to prevent the inheritance of the trait, taking measures to slow the rate at which the disease progresses, and time to prepare. On the other hand, there are negatives such as extreme stress and anxiety, treatment can be expensive, and insurance costs rise. Testing negative can lead to someone being less likely to get the disease, feelings of relief, no need for in vitro, which is costly, and medical insurance will be less expensive.